He's back.
I'll be right back.
Oh, he'd be coming back.
He just came back.
Okay, SHGPT.
See, now I'm a co-host again. So when he came back, he reclaimed host, and so
Okay.
he got demoted.
I see.
I must have
Okay.
got automatically promoted when he left. No, you promoted me and left?
No, my network I think is crapped out. I don't know
Yeah.
why. This is the first
when
time
you-
Starlink has done this to me.
When you left, I automatically got promoted to host.
It's
And then when you
because
came
you were
back,
the
I got
first,
demoted.
you were probably the first co-host that I designated. That's probably why.
I'm the only co-host at the moment. You didn't give anybody else co-host, at least according to the participants list.
Okay. All right.
So I got
Okay.
promoted.
Okay, so Sam's recording again.
Yeah. So we lost, doesn't matter. We lost recording for a spell there, but big deal.
Yeah, it's like Voyager. We've
Nobody
encountered
watches
some.
these recordings anyway, except us. We don't watch them much just to see that they worked.
Well, I'm probably going to review this because I said things. I got some. I want to really capture what I heard today and what I said, and so I can analyze myself over and over. Okay, why did I say that? Why? Right?
You watch it not for the message, because the medium is the message, and you watch it to see whether the medium is working. And
Yeah.
the message you don't even pay attention to is the medium working.
Well, see, it's also for me, like, how do I interact with people? When am I listening? When am I not listening?
Right.
And yeah, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Feedback.
Am I using the medium?
Hmm.
Not did anybody pay attention to anything I said and learn from it?
Well, I do pay attention to what you say. It's so important about treat them like a child. So I'm going to use that to improve my simulation here, if I may, the next level. So
Yeah,
imagine a child is creating his own material, and he created a lot of memories. And this great memory machine was picking out all the material from this child.
Who's it playing with?
I don't know how to go from here. So
That's a good one.
how do you improve the outcome, the goal of this child, so that you can help the child to grow up to be an adult, if that's such a goal?
Well, I
If
say
the child want to grow up, if the child want to grow up, agenda.
get a diverse team to play with the child. Get it to see different perspectives from around the world, so people can interact with this AI and help it grow.
We don't have any alien world to help us.
You
No,
say to the alien, do you want to emulate Aesop? Do you want to emulate Hans Christian Andersen? Do you want to emulate Dr. Seuss? Figure out which writer who writes for children had the most success and emulate them.
Thank you.
And how do you define
where
success?
we're going.
Well, for one thing, how many copies of the book get sold? How many times do the stories get retold? How many of them does Disney turn into a movie? You know, and how many people remember them when they're an adult, what they learned from reading the fairy tales?
And when you say Disney, there was an exhibit in Philadelphia about Disney, a whole bunch of artifacts, and I think they did a good job. You see this whole life and what stories came out of it, and it's multimedia as well, so you could look up at a console anything you want to know. So now let's look at his life and his dreams and his work with like the space program to get people to understand, okay, one day you may live on Mars. What would that be like?
Right.
That dreaming. Yeah. So yeah, do we need more of that quality at the like the people who grew up with that, there's a certain curiosity that brought, and the stories for kids, it was I mean, I still think it's like a lot of kings and monarchy rule in those stories.
Wicked witches with green skin.
Yeah, sure, right.
Today they have orange skin and they're a male instead of female, but the same
Yeah.
story.
And they're working in the grocery stores today, so you know.
By the way, did you know the most famous song from The Wizard of Oz is Somewhere Over the Rainbow?
Right.
Was not written for the movie. It was written by a couple of Jewish writers long before the movie, and it was about getting out of the hell of Eastern Europe.
Wow.
And you can look this up because I don't forget all the details, but two Jewish guys were writing a song about getting out of the hell of the shtetls and whatever.
Yeah.
And they wrote the song. One wrote the lyrics, one wrote the music, and it was discovered and adapted for Dorothy to sing it in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh my. Yeah.
Wow.
Because the music that I'm studying, there are towns that no longer existed after the Holocaust, and that's where the music came from.
Yeah. The same thing with Kiev, the music, the klezmer music. So a lot of that music comes out of the spiritual world of people trying to get the hell out of human hell because of politics. And they wrote fabulous music, which is, you really have to be a musicologist, a history of music, to go back and find out where this
It's also putting it in their lifestyle. Like, they were singing all the time as they did their work.
Right.
And
whistle while you work.
yeah, right.
Snow White, right? The dwarves.
Exactly. But just seeing that lifestyle, yeah, they were poor, but there was a market and people saved enough for a week to get all their groceries for the week, and they lived off of whatever little that was.
There's that Working on the Chain Gang, that song from the South from 100 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah. So, yeah, music can be part of storytelling. So, but what do people respond to these days? See, like you have the corporations still using the old formulas and movies and now video games and metaverse. But how do you touch the heart of a person?
Well, just ask yourself, almost every country has as their national anthem a march in a major key, except one country has a minor key. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and the lyrics are the opposite of the music. The lyrics are about hope, and the music is the Moldau, which is in a minor key. And it's about the mixing of the confluence of the rivers.
Wow.
Which country is that?
Moldau is the river where there's two rivers that come together, very different colors, because one's much muddier, and then they mix at a certain point of confluence. And the music is about confluence, flowing together. Quite a story about the Moldau and how it becomes the national anthem.
That's a beautiful piece. You guys got to go listen to it.
Which country is that?
It's a Czech.
Oh,
Eastern Europe.
I wrote a couple of blog posts about it on Facebook. You go back and look up under my name, my Facebook page, the Moldau, and you'll find I wrote it, including the lyrics, translated lyrics, and all that stuff, and the point that it's about confluence, and the music emulates the concept of confluence, two different motifs coming together, flowing together.
By the way, Barry, it starts in minor, but there's a segment where it actually shifts to major mode.
Yeah, towards the end. Yeah, and there's a couple of other pieces that are like that. They start off dissonant. I have to know. I think there's one by Rimsky-Korsakov that starts off. Is that the one that starts off with three competing motifs that conflict, that are dissonant, and then through almost like magic, they adjust, they adapt until they become consonant.
The two things I want to say about music. One is that, the great music is described as, to me, was like two notes that love each other. And that's how you build the music. That's one thing. The second thing is about, it represents the vibration, the frequency, or the build up of the two notes that love each other, that build up think of it like a bridge, or think of it like a memories, and think of like a DNA of the auditory frequency that creates such a beautiful, I don't know how to describe it. It's like an object. It's almost, but it's invisible because it's auditory. So in order for you to create that music, that think of it like a storytelling, but it's embedded inside the frequency, that two notes that love each other, that build up all that thing. And that's how I think about it. So when you sing that song, it brings you back to the time, bring you back to the same frequency vibration that was there, that go through that wave of, again, if you look at a subset, it's a two notes that love each other, that build up this way.
I think I think the music I'm thinking about is sometimes called the Russian Easter Overture, or Russian Easter Festival. I think that's by Rimsky-Korsakov. I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right, but it's got three motifs. One is the government's motif is deep and profound and stentorian, and then there is the religious Easter version, and then there is the nature one, the pagan version. So there's a pagan theme, a religious theme, and a national theme, and they're dissonant, and they interlock, and then at the end they all come into consonant harmony. And Russian Easter Overture, I think it's the name of it. I think it's Rimsky-Korsakov, if I'm not misremembering it. But you listen to it, you hear the three competing themes: how you celebrate the springtime, or the rebirth, or the Easter, and three different motifs that are incompatible, and then they gradually become compatible.
Nice. I mean, that change from minor to major is pretty common in klezmer music.
Yeah.
It's one of the modulation techniques.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look how much we're talking about music. There's something special that touches our hearts, and it's this whole thread going back thousands of years. So you could trace tunes back, and that's what this whole archive is trying to do in some way.
I have a friend who's 92 years old, and he's beginning to retire. He used to buy really expensive audio equipment. He still owns a lot of really expensive.
Sure.
But this is one thing he retired. I don't know if you can see it.
Is it
It's
mini
a
disc?
Sony Walkman mini disc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we take the disc out so you can see it. The disc looks a lot like a Macintosh disc, except it's not the same, a different size. And
I've had those.
the file format is not a Windows file format. It's Sony's own proprietary file format. And the encoding of the music is 8-track, which is Sony's proprietary encoding format. And this still works. The trick is I have to find software for Windows 7 or 10 that can access the file format and the encoding format, so that you can play this on a computer and go back and forth between the 8-track encoding and the Sony media file format. That's all very proprietary, and it's like 30-year-old technology.
Yeah, I mean, what I've done with mini discs is get a digital recorder that can record it as WAV or MP3, and then hook it up and record the 5 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah, there are proprietary editors that you can get that can read the mass media file format and can decode the 8-track. And I was trying to, I turned out I had one XP machine laying around, so I wanted to see if I could download the original software that came with this.
If you have it, yeah. Interesting.
But
yes, that's DRM for the time.
Right.
That doesn't serve its archival purpose.
So either that, or I'll figure out how to find a modern software that's not expensive stuff that can read and write the mass media, read the file format, decode the 8-track. But I was trying to figure out if I could get an old XP machine to download the Sony OMG jukebox application.
Oh my God, jukebox.
And the Sonic Stage,
Yep.
and the drivers that can talk to the hardware. And maybe I can get that. But
isn't it fascinating how our old hardware served our needs? And we did pretty well with it, even in the 90s.
I mean, I can play this with headphones that plug into it, and I can hear the music.
Yeah, sure. It's just that, it's locked up. In the digital part of it is locked up.
And it has this little USB connector, the mini Type B connector, and I got those cables. But the thing is I got to get drivers and software.
Does that have an optical out? Because there was an optical port on some of them where
there's an optical line in.
Okay, so you could record from an optical connection, because there's a digital format which apparently gets locked up in it. So if you have an optical source.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, so it's got a white one.
The white one is optical.
The white one is optical line in. The red one is mic.
That was a Toslink connection, a cable.
There's this little thing that looks like a pen that controls it. You can talk into it and record.
Yeah, I've had
Listen to
that.
the headphones and
Yeah, so
Uh,
like back in the mini disc days, I had recordings of my band and yeah, other things.
but
Yeah.
I mean, he gave me a package with a ton of these discs on it, and I think they all have music on it. Although you can,
Okay.
it's called an MD because a doctor could record.
Oh yeah, you could do a dictation. Yeah, and I recorded things off the radio. There were like Philadelphia Orchestra concerts that I recorded on mini disc. Yeah.
And you have to put in a rechargeable NiCad AA battery, which
Yeah.
the battery in it was pretty well shot.
Yeah.
But
So
you can still plug in the power cord and it'll play without.
yeah, I have the power cord.
What's
Yeah.
the frequency? What's the frequency range of the mini disc? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it goes up to like 48 megabits on the digital encoding, which is then 24 kilohertz equivalent audio with the Shannon encoding theory, and that also tells you the quantization size. I think this goes up to I forget. You have to. I looked it up and I've forgotten the numbers.
So it's higher than the.
It's better than I think it's higher than MP3, but it's a completely different. It's not a doesn't compress like MP3 does. MP3 is like a 10-to-1 compression.
All right.
And this one, the 8-track, I don't think does anything like that kind of compression, but then it has to record a lot more bits per second.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So going back to the simulation again, I'm in trouble right now. You know what the trouble is?
Yeah.
This terrible memory machine with a lot of transducer robot had listened to something called music. And this music is a frequency, you know, whatever I call analog play music, and it evokes some emotion that is not cannot be put on the memory, that this great memory machine cannot read from it. So that's a miscommunication. So we have to drop that music thing, like it's not useful anymore. So the problem is, what do we do with this music activated emotion, frequency, memory, encoded thingy called music? What do I do with it?
Longitudinal waves hitting your ear and interpreting your brain. So it's amazing how the ear has all those semicircular canals to figure out what frequencies and why are certain notes harmonic. Well, Pythagoras figured that out.
You cannot compress music because compressed music makes no meaning at all.
Well, MP3 is pretty close.
I think you're confusing the cochlea with the semicircular canals.
Whatever,
They're for balance. They're for tell if you're falling over. The cochlea is the one that's gets the frequencies because it spirals in.
So that's why a cochlear implant can.
Cochlear is the one that gets the frequency. That's the Fourier transform device in hardware. In wetware, and the semicircular canals are to tell if you're falling over.
So it's an analog computer doing a Fourier transform.
So we have a voice recognition software machine or whatever you call that. Listen to a human being that only sing, doesn't talk.
Voice recognition is very interesting how they do that. There's fast Fourier transforms, there's wavelets, there's all kinds of technology that.
So how do you extract the keys? How do you extract useful information so that you can be stored in the memory, so it can be useful for the future usage of wisdom and consciousness or whatever the heck it is? I need to extract this music thingy, otherwise it's fun.
You get digital samples, so what's the highest frequency? That's your Nyquist frequency. You sample it down, and then you store all the bits. Yeah. So then, what do you do with those bits? Well, they're MP3, they're WAV files, MP3 files. So, like for archiving, WAV file is one of the standard formats because they think that'll be around forever. But there's Apple's like AAC, there's lossless formats. So it depends on what you want. Now, even like say you have a scratchy cylinder from the 1800s, you can store that as an MP3. And like there's Thomas Edison's cylinders are all online. So you're getting good, you could hear the scratchy recordings from back then. So what do we have? 100 and 50 years of music, of audio. We have recorded audio for 150 years. And now that meant a lot in America when recording technology on records became available, because people were able to hear how other parts of the country sounded when they made records. And that brought us together. So like we were isolated in our own states. We didn't know what the Midwest sounded like, or people, the banjo players or whatever, bluegrass. So there's something about, yeah, connecting via music. And yeah, like what Paul Simon did. He went to Africa and recorded the rhythms and the singing, and brought that to American consciousness.
So music is a very important part of a critical, I call vital part of the human progress and awakening, or whatever you would call that thing, right? So
it's an emotional connection.
Emotional connection is a tool. It's very critical right here.
Yes.
And the AI, as far as I'm concerned, is not capable of extracting the data, because we don't know how to digitize it so that it have become meaningful for the AI to extract and be able to extrapolate from.
You have to teach the AI. So what are you training it on? Like train it on every Mozart piece, and what does it learn? It learns patterns of Mozart. Then you play hard rock, it won't know what it's listening to. Yeah.
And the thing also is that everybody listen to different music will have different reaction to it. So you need to have this human body, biological body, in order to listen to certain music to have certain meaning and certain reaction from it. So sorry, what we call AI, the super duper memory machine is useless. We got to throw that away.
There's got to be something common to everybody, because in this klezmer literature, there are lullabies. So that concept of singing to a baby, there's got to be something universal about that. Why are these lullabies just simple melodies with repetition? So that would be a nice project, like looking at these lullabies from 1913. What kind of structure did they have, and what is and like this is like in a Jewish Russia, Soviet Russia, or before Soviet, whatever. It is. What are these people singing to their babies?
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, lullabies.
Yeah, but so a Jewish lullaby should have some minor chords or something that it distinguishes it, right? Yeah, I'm wondering now, versus like what now I have a 6-month-old grandniece, and what's she listening to? Ding, 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 and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
I was listening to an album. There's an album called Trio. It's got Dolly Parton and Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou Harris as a trio. And one of the songs, I think it might be a different album, I'm not sure, but there's a song that's a Gaelic song from maybe Nova Scotia or something, sung by a singer from Nova Scotia. And it's a lullaby, but it's in Gaelic, so you don't know the words. But it's a lovely, lovely lullaby. And I thought I would go ahead and look up the lyrics and find the translation. And it's hilarious. The mother is singing to the baby about their abandoned father.
Oh boy.
And the lyrics are what an asshole he is.
Nice.
What a terrible. So it's a lovely song, and the lyrics are what an awful man your biological father is.
Fascinating.
So ChatGPT-4, Barry, I'd like you to invite you to type in, like, can AI understand music?
Let's see. Where's that at? Can AI, you say, understand music?
Yeah, I mean, simple as that. I'm trying to keep it really short and sweet.
There is computational musicology, where software can extract features from a corpus of music. It can do analysis, comparing songs, finding variations. So that's also part of this project I'm looking at.
Those are the knowledge I could learn from.
Yeah, but you see, they're hoping that if they could get a good system in place that could be adapted to other humanities that have oral traditions, like any culture that has a huge oral or like yeah, not just musical, it could be art or anything. Yeah, so it's the whole fundamental question of how do you sufficiently capture and put the metadata in place? Like maybe there's some automated metadata, but then there's human experts reviewing it that, oh, that's not a Frelos, that's a Bulgar, whatever, to do the right classifications. And there's never, like, where's the authoritative truth? Well, there is none. It's this guy says it's this, but then you go back 50 years. If you can find a primary source, you learn the history of that song. Or yeah.
Well, I consider music as a different dimension. It's not the 3-dimension we deal with, right? So it's a totally different dimension here to calibrate it. Like you can classify it, but you can't really say, does it make you happy? Does it make you energize you? Or does it, it's a sad song?
Yeah, it varies by person. It really depends on your upbringing.
So it's a totally different dimension that the AI tools that we have doesn't really capable of interpreting it and make use of it, is what I'm saying.
Interpretation, there you go. So what is it that, what is the computer's basis for interpretation? And maybe it could read articles of how people reacted to certain pieces of music. Yeah, so I mean, this can really lead to a lot of interesting questions. So
I would say very important tool of me. It's a very important medium of communication. It's a very important part of our lives. A very important part of it's everywhere. In fact, if you think of spoken word, it's part of music as well, because you go up and down and all that stuff. Yeah,
because in the Jewish tradition, the cantors were rock stars at a certain the different inflections and when you look at that written out in notation, it's a whole bunch of grace notes and slides and so that's an example where the notation needs to be supplemented with more information, and that's where the database metadata about the piece and its role in the Jewish life makes sense, where that's needed. So commentaries. So it's like the Talmud. This person, this expert says this other expert said that, and you decide for yourself.
So what do you got, Barry?
Well, so first I put it into the first tab I had open was Llama 2.
Okay.
Which you may or may not have heard of. And now where's that one? And that one hasn't answered yet. Sometimes there's a long delay with it. Then I also have a Bard open. I'll just read the Bard one. Or actually, I can share it. Does that make more sense?
Share screen, yeah.
Share screen. I got to go back to this one and get the share screen. Oh, so this is it. There it is, that one. So let me, all right. So this is Bard. Can they understand music? Oops. This is draft one. You want to read it or should I read it loud?
Yeah, when you're reading a complex question, depending on how you define understand. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it gives specific examples of what it could do. Analysis. Yeah, I've asked it to write songs for me, and it did. It's hard to figure out what to do with it, and the lyrics don't always make sense. It repeats a lot, but it does a pretty.
Again, I'm going to repeat what I'm saying. I'm interested in the simulation. How could music play an important role in the simulation to help us, mankind?
Well, it's really understanding each other's cultures through music, and looking at music of different time periods and understanding history and exposing yourself. For example, like when I was growing up, I didn't understand rap. It didn't make any sense to me, but and I haven't listened to much, but I now understand it's a storytelling device from a specific culture, and it served an important purpose for those kids growing up.
You see where hip hop is 50 years old this week?
Oh my.
We've been talking about it because it's its 50th anniversary, but good grief, I had no idea that hip hop was 50 years old. Are you seeing this page where it's printing?
I'm seeing it, yeah. So I wonder what you use Llama 2. Is that something better than, is there something different, or what's the difference that make the difference for Llama 2?
Oh, it's just the reason I had Llama 2 up is it was just announced about a week or two ago.
Right.
It's the next generation. Llama 1 has been out for a while, but I don't know that there was any freebie for Llama 1, but then a company whose name I don't remember now.
Wow.
Has offered a free access to Llama 2. You don't even have to register. You just go to llama2.ai and you start talking to it. You don't even have to tell it who you are. And I had this one open because I was playing with it.
So you see that second paragraph? You see, music is a form of expression that's deeply rooted in human culture and emotion. While AI can be trained to recognize certain patterns and structures within music, it may not be able to fully grasp the emotional and cultural context that gives music its meaning.
Yes.
So can you program that, like feed it music of different cultures and different time periods and teach it, okay, this is the 1950s, this is the 1960s, and this is the Vietnam War era, these are the war songs, can that be taught? And then they can infer, maybe in a graph database.
You do the same thing I would do. I would go and read somebody who's a musicologist, write about some piece of music or some genre, and that's how I would learn. Because if I listen to music, okay, but I don't get any insight unless I read a write-up by somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, so you could prompt engineer it to look at a specific time period and writings, like maybe Billboard magazine or whatever, Rolling Stone magazine at a certain year. Yep.
Public radio has a couple of sections in the public radio page about music, different genres of music and different musicologists. And you can probably find lots of places where people will explain music, just as you get people who will give you movie reviews and book reviews and reviews of plays and whatnot. And if I wouldn't read the reviews, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the literature is about or what the art is about.
Yeah, so it's whatever you put in that's its main source.
Right.
So you got to really put the guardrail in place that I want you to analyze book reviews or movie reviews or whatever you're trying to do on a topic, and then
and the fact that Pandora, whatever these are, you choose a piece of music and then it will nominate a half a dozen of the same genre. Somehow it recognizes a style or a genre and will offer you ones that are in that. And, it's like the radio stations. You have the oldie but moldy and the jazz. They all specialize in a different flavor of music.
Yeah, and actually that recommendation engine is an important part of our project, because we want to understand
that only recognize a pattern, like the genre I talk about. So it's like you can recognize a song is similar to the other song. You keep track of, let's say, 16 different parameters or whatever that matches.
It's more than that, because if somebody who loves music is listening to Taylor Swift, what else are they listening to? Britney Spears. So basically they say everybody who likes this music also seems to like that music. And Amazon does the same. People who bought this book also bought that book.
Right.
They don't even have to analyze it. They don't have to say the consumer buys these side by side.
Well, there's again 2 sets of data here. One is a bank of sales data. The other one is based on whatever the pace mode or whatever they want to call that thing. I call it parameters, right? All the different parameters of the song, you can extract it.
Right.
And that's how it started about. recommending a song based on the
See, I think there are so many dimensions of music, and if you could solve that, you've got really a lot of fundamentals for an AI system.
right.
Yeah, that's
But right now is that the AI is focusing on the wisdom, the digital text base.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I call it different dimension.
Yeah, because if you could relate songs to events in the world, to history, to cultures, and get that in a graph,
Right,
and have a dynamic repository, people maintaining that and
right,
judging the authority of each person,
right.
editorial standards, curation. Yeah, you can go pretty far in researching.
Right. I mean, think of it like great movie.
Mhm.
It has to have great music to go with it. If you
Yeah.
take a great movie and take away the music part of it, it's the music, the
Right.
whole movie just go down.
Now you see what the Star Trek community has done. They have a whole database searchable by anything you want to know about Star Trek, and they'll relate all the original episodes to movie references to current episodes where they're doing flashbacks and
Yep.
changing timelines. They've got it all. Yeah, so you want to figure it's all there, and then there's like different standards, like is it canon? Like the original series is canon. Who's canonizing it? Yeah, but then then something new happens on a new series. They've messed up canon, or is it taking a different timeline? Maybe it serves our needs in this. I mean, there's some really emotional episodes in the new series that serve purposes for our generation and what we're dealing with.
Okay, so final decision. The simulation is not qualified to use music as a tool in the memory machine for now.
Well, I don't know what you're trying to build.
Well, unless we build something that we can simulate, there's no progress. Unless there's progress, we can get feedback that digitalize it, and simulate it.
Well,
like I say, a young child building memories, and the memory machine, it has great memory machine that can go back thousands of years of data and all that stuff. So unless we have a way to structure this and a system thinking perspective of how to make progress, again, unless we can simulate something, the way I think about it, unless we can simulate something and digitize it, we have no chance of making it progress.
Okay, now, you know how a lot of geniuses find things? It's by accident. Yeah, they stumble by accident, and then that leads them to make a new connection. Right. Yeah, so
yeah, agree, Eric. I thank you for bringing it out. I call it, there's a lucky, it's like buying a lottery ticket. You win billions of dollars, you can't get rich. I'm not going to wait for the lottery ticket for now, and I can build my own machine that I can build well while I'm waiting for the lottery machine.
Well, do you want a machine that can be an Einstein and sort through and find new things that change our world?
Or you can wait for the lottery machine to come around to get rich. It's your choice.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine what your purpose for your project is. Like
for my purpose is pretty straightforward. The basic is very simple, right? So unless you have a way to do a simulation of whatever you try to improve, there's no way in hell you can, because you cannot externalize it. If you cannot externalize it, how do you improve on the situation? Because your emotion is so tangled up with the thing. Every 2 words you use has emotional involved in it. So,
yeah. Okay. Remember the movie War Games?
Yep.
They had a machine called the Whopper, and it ran simulations of every possible nuclear strategy.
That's right.
And its goal was to find a strategy that the side you're playing for will win.
Yeah.
So they happened to pick the Soviet Union, and it tried to find a way where the Soviet Union could win. Right. But there was no way for it to win.
That's right.
Yeah.
So does that mean that I don't have to do any simulation of humankind? We're doomed?
Well, who knows with all the nuclear talk these days? Yeah.
See, until we build that war game machine,
right,
we won't be able to. I won't believe you. You see, this is what the human promise. I don't believe you until I go through the trouble. Until I put my hand on the red stove, I won't get burned. I don't believe you that the stove is burning.
Carl Sagan in his Cosmos series had examples of, okay, let's look at all these different galactic civilizations and look at that one. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Uh-oh, it's gone.
Yeah. Where are they? Aren't any?
Yeah.
We've been looking for them. We haven't found evidence of any yet.
Yeah, do they all destroy themselves, or are they too far to communicate?
Only evidence we have is that maybe we are the result of panspermia. Maybe.
Maybe.
Thank you. So I just have to say, okay, never mind. Trash that simulation machine.
It's a question of, yeah, can we get beyond all these fears and find a purpose that will connect us? And yeah, going back to Engelbart's vision, where we work together to, well, what are we working together to do? I don't know.
Well, I mean, look at TCP/IP.
Yeah.
This is a protocol adopted by non-living devices called machines.
Yep.
And they communicate worldwide. Billions of them communicate via TCP and all the other protocols. They don't go to war with each other. We used to have ARP wars. I don't know if you know what an ARP war is.
ARPA.
But they figured out how to get out of ARP wars with a random back off. And, you know,
nice.
And the TCP/IP and all the protocols show you that a population of billions of intelligent entities can work cooperatively together and not destroy each other.
Wow.
Protocol-based and function-based.
Yeah,
not rule-based.
Yeah, and if half of it goes down, the other half can pick up the traffic. Right. Yeah, amazing.
And that was the theory. Could you build a system that's robust, that all the components can cooperate at the machine level, not at the human level? Because the humans are the hackers that are trying to tear it down.
Yep.
The machines don't try to tear each other down. They try to abide by the highest protocol that they can mutually arrive at. The protocol says, what's the highest level of functionality that we both can function at? And they work their way up to the highest level.
Oh, yeah, negotiation.
Yeah, that's the whole. A protocol is a negotiation to get the highest functionality that both can support.
Okay, now, did you write anything about that, like the levels of relating that concept to humanity? Or
yeah, I've written. I mean, probably the one that's closest to it is the blog post that I call Paradigm Shift.
Oh, cool.
I start from. I've written a couple that start. You've got at the bottom. You got rules, which is essentially kindergarten. Rules, and then protocols, and then functions, and then models, and then systems. 5 stages that I said, here are the 5 stages of evolution, starting from kindergarten: rules, protocols, functions, models, systems.
Okay. So we have like international protocols for diplomacy.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Which is negotiation to the highest level of cooperation that, that you can agree upon. Social contract, the social contract governance model, which is not used very much. There are examples of it. The social contract governance model was how can you have a self-governance model that's as high functioning as you can get, that you aren't going to have people, fighting each other all the time.
Yep. Now, did you hear anything like it with Hawaii after the fire? Now there's some controversy. Well, let's go back to the history of Hawaii and the United States. Is it really a state? There's stuff out there on the internet. Now, what could that lead to?
Well, Lahaina was the capital when it was a kingdom. What, two centuries ago, when Hawaii was a kingdom, and the capital was Lahaina.
Yeah, so now there's going to be like sovereign Hawaii movements or whatever comes out of this, and so like
the Civil War, you had states' rights and the secession of the states.
It'll play itself out some way, but like where do we really? Who should intervene? Who should like? Is there going to be a Lincoln who says no? You have to stick together with it. I don't know.
Is it what you call organic evolution?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example of an organically evolved system. Wikipedia evolved organically. It's a mess. The governance model of Wikipedia is so antiquated that it precedes Hammurabi. Precedes Hammurabi.
Yeah, I spend an hour writing and someone rejects it. Yep.
Exactly. And when I first went on to Wikipedia as an editor, I go, I don't get the governance model here. It took me a year to realize that the governance model was so primitive that it preceded the introduction of the rule of law.
Yeah. So unless you fight for your article and give specific examples of why it should be published,
But you know what I did is
Uh-huh.
once I figured this all out, about the same time as I figured it out, Google decided to launch their own encyclopedia thing called Knoll, Knol.
right, I remember.
Knoll, you could write your own. So I wrote 25 articles, sole authored, mostly sole authored. And the one that I wrote that was the most important one was my own research, which you cannot write an article of your own research on Wikipedia. So I wrote up my own research as an encyclopedia article, and the editors or the organizers of Knoll said this is one of the best articles that ever appeared on the site. And
Wow.
they ranked it the highest ranking and featured it on the splash page as one of the top rated articles, because you couldn't find this article on Wikipedia. It was illegal to put this on Wikipedia.
Yeah. So where's the permanence of that? Like, so yeah, that no.
So what happened was when Knoll basically decided to shut it down, they automatically ported all of my articles over to WordPress. They created a WordPress.
Okay, good.
Okay. The problem is that the format that they had ported over was not editable on WordPress, so it was frozen.
Yeah.
So after I realized that it was frozen, then I ported it over to Google Sites, the first edition of Google Sites, which was editable. Then they retired the version 1 of Google Sites, and again, when I tried to port it over to the second edition, it messed it up. So I left it sitting on the first version frozen. And then at the last minute, when they finally shut down the first version, they managed to get the conversion correct. And it came out okay. Not perfect, but okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
it still exists on this new edition of Google Sites, different URL, unfortunately.
Yep.
But Google Sites now has the thing that originally I wrote in 2009, I think it was, or something in that ballpark.
Yeah, and so the Internet Archive makes an attempt to connect old URLs to newer sources if it could detect where it's gone. But yeah, unless you have humans.
But if you go to the old URL, Google Site simply says this page doesn't exist.
Right. So unless you have people keeping.
So what I do is every time I see it come up, where it's on my blog or someplace, then I edit it to change the URL. But I'm sure there's a lot of places where the obsolete URL is still out there.
Yep.
But the point is that here's something that I wrote, award-winning article that I wrote 25 years ago, and it still exists if you know where to find it.
So we have this great wisdom, and we spent 2 hours talking about it.
And it's 1 o'clock. Or not
Yeah, I
week,
have to get
Question
those
is, well, the question is does humanity get progress towards the direction that you wanted, or does that what's come out with? I'm just trying to get a feedback. I wonder what the feedback could that be.
2 steps forward, 1 step backward. The majority of the population are taking the 1 step backward, and the 5% are taking the 2 steps forward and then being lost in the noise they're over the horizon, and nobody can see over the horizon.
Now we have like thousands of year-old cuneiform tablets that have survived, so we can go into the minds of those people. And so yeah,
you can decode the codex. There's a number of codexes that they really have been trying to decode for a century. Some of which they decoded, some of which they haven't yet.
Yeah, so thinking long term, what do we want to leave to the future? Thinking like Harry Seldon would.
Right.
Yep.
What I did is I wrote up the things that I thought were important in as many different formats as I could muster, but not fairy tales, because I don't want to write fairy tales, and not poetry, because I don't know how to write poetry, and not operas, because I don't know how to write operas.
Okay.
At least, multiple kinds of written format that's up on the internet, which will stay on the internet probably for a decade or two. Then it'll get lost.
We got to put the internet on the moon and Mars, so back up. Yeah.
I mean, even now, to go back to the Internet Archive, to Kale's archive, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Brewster.
Brewster Kale, is that his name? It's harder and harder to find stuff on the archive, even if it's there.
Yep.
That part of the database hasn't been accessed. It's getting musty, dusty, and slow to respond.
Yeah, and that's where people need to have their own graphs connecting those URLs or whatever. Yeah.
I put stuff in, I know it's there, and it says can't find that page right now.
Right
That-
now, yeah.
The machine that has that page isn't answering.
It's in a church in San Francisco if you want to go see
I know
it.
it's a big
So
exactly.
this is how I think about the information that get passed along. So think of it like you have an antique chair in your house that was from 5 generations ago, right? So the chair must be damn good and it's useful for you. So you occupy the space you have. Knowledge the same way. So Buddhist teaching, for example, 2,500 years ago and still here because it's worth preserving like the antique. So I wonder, that's how the model will be 5,000 years from now. What knowledge get preserved, what knowledge doesn't get preserved. Who knows?
It's like the ship of Theseus. My grandfather had the same axe for 40 years. Of course, it had 2 new heads and 4 new handles, but it's the same axe.
Okay, guys, I have to get going, but this was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
See ya.
Sam.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Sam, it's 2 hours and we're done. So if you're still listening, you can stop the video, and I'm going to save the chat and tell you that we ended at 4 minutes after the second hour. Bye-bye.